Hi everybody, this is an instructional video on the 3.01 Where Reporters Find Their Stories assignment. So I have it pulled up, so I'm going to pull it over here real quick. Okay, so this assignment is the precursor to your 4.05 assignment, which is going to be the article that you write for the class. So we talked in the beginning of the semester about how you were all going to be writing one article for our course. So this is the story proposal for that. So what I'm going to talk with you about here in this video is very important. So you might want to take notes. You definitely want to make sure that if you're referring back to it if you need to, but there's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to give to you that's very important, that's going to help you through the remainder of the course. So with that, what you're doing is you are proposing what you would like to write about for your news article. So this is a pretty simple assignment. It's worth 25 points. So it's not going to be too, it's not really that long, but what you're putting in the assignment is going to be very important. So the first thing that you're going to do is that you are going to look about choosing an organization or an individual who has recently made news in your local community. This is the first step to producing your own news story that you're going to be doing in 4.05. So the first thing I want to tell you is whatever you pick for this 3.01 has to be what you're writing about in 4.05. So whatever you're picking for your story proposal is what you're going to use for your news article. So it's very important. You cannot change it. You cannot switch it unless there's some crazy thing that pops up, okay? Second, whatever you pick has to be local to you. So what does that mean? You should not be writing about Biden unless he's sitting next to you at the table right now. You should not be writing about movie stars. You should not be writing about anything with national news unless it has to do with your community. So what you need to do is you need to pick an organization or an individual who has recently made news in your community. Okay, so that could be a student that maybe went to state for wrestling. It could be a student who's raised a lot of money for SISCA, for an animal organization. It could be a local bakery in your community that has made these fantastic cakes for the homeless. Whatever it is, it has to be local to you. I can't emphasize that enough. What will happen is if you do not write local to you, I immediately will return it and ask you to write something local to you. My number one complaint from students is there's nothing going on that's local in my community. Trust me, there's stuff you can find out. So I absolutely will not take that as an excuse. There's always something going on somewhere in a community. So you can write about it. And it doesn't have to be something that's like huge and amazing. It could be so like your church is doing a fundraiser for like a community in Africa. Whatever it is, but it has to be local to you. So that's the first thing. So you're going to basically just give me a brief description of your story idea, right? And include who you think might be interested in the story. So pretty simple. The second thing that you're going to do is you are going to provide me with at least 2 people that you could interview. So that means, well, maybe if you're writing about your church, maybe you would interview the pastor. If you're writing about the student that went to state for wrestling, maybe you're going to interview the coach and the student. Whoever you think that you would be able to interview. You do not necessarily have to interview those people, but it's just an idea to get you started of who you possibly could interview. And it's as simple as that. You're listing 2 people that you could interview and state what sort of information you hope each of those 2 sources would be able to give you. The third thing that you're going to look at is non-human sources. And non-human sources are things that we covered in class, but just as a reminder, non-human sources are things like web pages, charts, graphs, data. It could be another news article that you would possibly look at that has already been written about what's happening in that specific topic that you decide to write about. So those are non-human sources. So you want to look at least two, or sorry, at least one, preferably two, non-human source. So if you want to write about, let's say you want to write about Cisco and something great that they're doing in your communities. Let's say there's a Cisco where you live. You could look at their website. That is a resource. You could look at an article that someone has already written about Cisco. That's a non-human resource. So basically it's kind of the research part of it that you're doing. So 2 human sources at least, 1 non-human source at least, right? So here's the other thing that I need you to remember, and we're going to discuss this closer to when we're working on 4.05. You absolutely want to make sure that you are not copying an article that has already been written. Your job is to not rewrite an article. So as you're coming up with this information, keep in mind that you're writing your own original article. Are you allowed to use other articles as sources? Yes. But if I can Google your article and it pops up, that means it's plagiarized, and that means it's just a rewritten article, and that's a big 0 and an F. So you need to make sure that you are not rewriting an article. You should have your own interviews. You should have your own sources. Everything is 100% your own. So I can't emphasize that enough. So I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to show you the path that this is going to follow to 4.05. All right, so I know we talked about this at the very beginning of the semester, but we've had a lot of students come into class through different cohorts. So I want to make sure that I'm reinforcing what's going to happen with your assignments so you can follow the path that you're going to absolutely need to take. So this is the 4.05 assignment that's going to be due in a couple weeks. And it's your first article. However, before you can ever submit this article or start working on this article, these 5 assignments have to be completed. So what's going to happen is until you submit something to the Dropbox for these 5 assignments, this assignment will not even show for you. So what's really important for you to remember is that this 3.01 has to be done. These all build and help you write this 4.05. There's a reason that these have to be completed before you do 4.05. So it's very, very important, because I'm going to get a lot of, well, I don't even see 4.05. You're not seeing it because you haven't completed or submitted one of these assignments. So 3.01 is a mandatory assignment. It's something you absolutely have to do. If you do not complete it, you will not be able to access 4.05, which is a very large grade in our classroom for the semester. Okay, so if you have questions, please let me know. I just wanted to emphasize and remind you how that works. There are a few other assignments later on that they're also going to be required before you can complete another assignment, and I'll touch on that later. But these 5 assignments must be completed over the next couple weeks before you can touch on this 4.05. So have a fantastic Unit 3, and if you have questions, let me know.